What's going on, guys? It's Justice here and welcome back to RuneScape. So the Slayer skill is being expanded to level 120. Some people are against this though due to Invention arguably not being completely finished yet. You can train up to level 120 with Invention at a very good rate at the moment through siphoning tier 90s, which is what I'm doing at the moment, and not even disassembling them. But I suppose people's argument is that there's a gap in unlockables between 99 and 120 with Invention, which is true. So we will be waiting a lot longer for this to be filled in, but there are new perks, etc. being released in the game right now here and there, with Enhanced Devoted gizmo currently being the new meta to have on your augmented armor. But I'm actually pretty damn hyped to see Slayer expanded to level 120. So this is going to be launched with the Menaphos Expansion in June. That's another major thing, another major change with how RuneScape are going to approach their updates moving forward. They're going to be approaching it with expansions. This is something which I am really hyped up about. Again, if you watch my video about my thoughts on recent updates and the future of RuneScape, I mentioned about my discontent towards having, unfinished products being released into the game, such as Invention, the Arc, for two major updates to the game that were just completely unfinished, really, at least 50% unfinished. And it's just that sort of mentality, which is, it's that sort of approach which I feel is creating a lot of discontent amongst the community. We're not really seeing anything finished, and we're almost being treated as beta testers. Well, that's something that they did address at RuneFest. Mod Osborne in particular addressed that issue, and they are going to be looking at bringing out 3 new expansions in 2017, and they focused on the June expansion with regards to Menaphos. And within that expansion, the Slayer skill in particular is going to be raised up to level 120, and there's going to be a lot of content being filled in between 99 and 120 to cater for that, in the context of a new Slayer Dungeon. And this dungeon is going to be Amascut Slayer Dungeon, and it's going to be linked to a lot of storyline and quest lines within the expansion as well, which I think is really cool, just making that link, and having a strong link with that. So you're playing through different quest lines and things like that. Maybe you need to do a quest to unlock the Slayer Dungeon, I'm not quite sure, but they're going to be putting that into the expansion with multiple other things to really delve into for a 3-month period. Now, may have had the title of this video linked to what I'm about to say. Yes, you essentially have 1 year from now to get 120 Slayer in order to get your Completionist cape back, or in order to complete that requirement, in order to have a chance of getting that cape. Essentially, it's going to be part of the game, part of completing the game of RuneScape. And the reason why I say that is because the expansion will come out in June, and that's when the Slayer will be increased. And that's when the Slayer level cap, not the virtual level cap, but the actual level cap, would be increased to 120 in June. And then you'll have 3 months until the next expansion in September to get 120 Slayer in order to keep your Completionist cape. So at that entire period, you'll be able to still train up Slayer with your Completionist cape if you've completed other requirements within that expansion, I assume. I think the 3-month leeway is only linked to Slayer, from my knowledge. But either way, they've learnt from the high-level Slayer mobs as well. In terms of, what they're going to offer here in the dungeon, it's going to be more testing our gear and items rather than mechanical skill. And in my opinion, that's probably a good idea for Slayer monsters, because we don't really want to see loads of different mechanics, like insta-kill mechanics within a Slayer monster, really, when you're not really getting a huge amount of rewards from it. So instead, it's just going to be testing your gear and item level, and therefore it's also linking to one of my previous videos recently this week. They're going to make gear and items more relevant in the game, because at the moment, like say the new tier 92 weapons, they're not really that relevant at the moment. They have a minute impact, and they're going to be bringing out a group boss later the second half of next year, probably with tier 95 gear and weapons. So they want to make it more meaningful when you get that gear, even in Slayer tasks and against other NPCs. They're essentially going to be buffing these NPCs that are, released into the game, so they're a lot tougher to kill compared to existing NPCs in the game. I mean, if you have a look at like existing NPCs, they're pretty easy. Like, I'd say Erets are like an example of where, tier 90 gear, you can see the effect at Erets, because they seem to have a fairly high defense. And if you've got like tier 80 gear or below, or definitely below that, you're going to struggle to really be efficient at Erets, for example. So there are some mobs, but they're not in the majority, and they want to change that. So this new Slayer dungeon is going to be equivalent to higher tier Slayer tasks, where you're going to want a decent gear, and even if you are going in with tier 80, you'll be able to kill them, but you're going to really feel like you're fighting something that is fighting you back. And I think that's a good feeling. It's going to make the Slayer tasks a little bit more more engaging, and overall just make you feel like the gear which you're using is worthwhile for that expansion. So it'll probably follow that sort of pattern. Like each expansion you'll feel that impact maybe, or at least within the new year you'll feel an impact where NPCs are buffed and where your gear, the new gear that you're getting from boss fights for example, is actually relevant to the new updates that are coming out. And I think that's a fantastic idea, and it'll be a really nice curve, a really nice sort of PVM cycle or PvE cycle. So essentially, these new Slayer mobs within the Slayer Dungeon, Amascut Slayer Dungeon, will have higher defense, and they may attack more, but it'll mostly be just the fact that they have higher defense, and you'll need some decent gear to take them down. But what's also interesting about this dungeon is that they're going to make it fairly dynamic as well, in the aspect of you're not going to just go in there, have a singular task just to fight so many monsters. There's going to be multiple areas within that dungeon, maybe multiple floors, and you will have different types of Slayer monsters within there, and you'll have a task that isn't restricted by one monster. No, you'll actually have a task that you'll be able to kill multiple different races and types of monsters within that dungeon to contribute to completing that task, and that's also interesting. I think they're going to have like a dynamic system like Prifddinas, where I think it's called the Voices of Seren, where there's certain areas within Prifddinas where XP is increased, and that'll be similar with the Slayer Dungeon, where there may be certain areas where experience is increased. You can either just stay in the area which you're in, or you can move around and be more efficient within that area, and essentially it'll be more rewarding for you if you actually engage in the content a little bit more. Essentially, they're going to make it require a little bit more skill in order to get more reward out of it. There's also a chance of having a survival wave being activated, where you'll have to fight against all the NPCs, where they all become aggressive against you. This is something which I'm really excited about, because you can imagine with this being a new expansion, it's going to be a pretty, busy place. There's going to be a lot of people there. It's going to feel like you're really playing an MMO. There's going to be multiple people slaying to get to 120, for example, and taking advantage of these new XP rates, which will be exponential and will be a lot better than existing XP rates, I assume, within the game. And therefore, you want to be smart. I personally will probably be training up towards level 120, but will leave a decent chunk of XP where I can really enjoy and engage into the new content and use those XP rates to be more meaningful with the skill and get to 120 more efficiently. So that's probably what I'll be doing. But either way, the survival mode sounds very good. You can imagine just having a group of people there, and then all of a sudden the survival mode kicks in, all of the NPCs become aggro, and you start fighting together in order to survive within that dungeon, and that's really cool as well. Not only that, but they'll also have a contribution system potentially, where you will contribute to unlocking a key, and with that key you'll be able to get through a door and fight a boss monster. And I think that's equivalent to something potentially which is in old school right now, and I know the games do it. So I think old school have a system where you can fight monsters and kill the boss, but I've heard that they've not really made it that rewarding, I've heard, or it takes too long maybe to get the key. I'm not quite sure with that. But in terms of this, you'll once you've completed so many tasks or killed so many monsters, you'll unlock keys. You can then open the door and fight the monster, which will be more rewarding. Potentially that Slayer boss monster will have a few more mechanics. Maybe it's a little bit like the Demon Flash mob mechanics, and you might have to go in there with a group of people and take it down, or if you're extremely good, go in there solo, but maybe it'll have a huge amount of life points, something like that, and you just have to take it down progressively. And it probably, it would be pretty cool to be like, okay, get a group of mates together, I've got my key sorted, let's go and take this down. So it's a little bit more efficient, or just call a few people to go and say, you've got a key, let's go and take it down, because it's got a lot of life points, and it'll be quicker if I go with like a group of 3 or 4 people. Maybe you just go with the people who are in the dungeon as well. So it could work in various ways, and it could really contribute again to social PVMing. But either way, it sounds very good. So you go into this, through this doorway with this key, you kill the monster. Maybe it gives you better rewards, and therefore making it worth doing, and it'll also give you a big chunk of Slayer XP maybe. So really interesting. On top of that, to make it even more dynamic, they've got a central chest looting system where all your drops will go there, or there'll be a limit to what it can hold, and you can upgrade this chest through completing Slayer tasks where it'll store more loot for you. That is also a really cool idea, because they mentioned something at RuneFest where they feel like a lot of Slayer tasks, it's all about managing your inventory rather than actually enjoying the content. That kind of makes sense. So I think having a central chest looting system will be really ideal, and I love the idea of that, because most of the time I can't be bothered picking up my drops. Yes, you can take a legendary pet, but then you can't take a Nihil for extra accuracy, which you might need at this place because they've got higher defense. So either way, by need, you won't need it, but if you want to be more efficient, you'll want to take maybe a Nihil. Either way, when I do Slayer personally, which isn't that much at the moment, but I've got like 28 million Slayer XP, and I don't really do it. I think that was for like completionist requirements. But when I do Slayer, I really don't want to pick up all the loot. So with having a central chest looting system, that's ideal for me personally, and I'm sure a lot of you guys would like that too. So this whole expansion and maybe the Slayer Dungeon is going to be linked to lots of desert stories and quests. You're going to have to go out and hunt for these different quests. They're not going to be told to you saying, hey, this is a new quest that's came out. It's going to be part of the expansion, and people are going to explore and unlock these quests, which is also really damn cool. So to summarize, you've got about 1 year from now to hit 120 Slayer to meet the completionist requirement, essentially 120 Slayer in June. You've then got 3 months till the next expansion in September for comp. Also though, if you already are level 120 Slayer, because I know there's a lot of you guys who love Slayer, and I know there's a lot of people who have 120 Slayer, and my mate of mine, Kieran, he's recently reached 200 million Slayer experience, so he's already reached out and maxed and capped out the limit of XP that you can get in the skill. But what's really cool is that, you know, when you get to 120 Slayer, they are going to give something to players. And what you'll be doing is you'll be working towards becoming your own Slayer Master and assigning your own tasks and have the ability to create your own monsters in a dungeon as well. That sounds pretty damn cool, and therefore it's rewarding those players who reach that 120 completionist requirement. So there is actually a reward there other than just, oh, okay, you need to do this to get comp, which in my eyes is a fantastic attribute to have. You know, I don't think they should be purely bringing out content just to be like, you just need to complete this for comp. I think to have a nice ongoing reward or a replayable reward, I think is really cool. Maybe to unlock it as well. It doesn't have to be, you know, in the future if they want to do stuff like this, it doesn't have to be a reward that helps within that specific skill. It could be a reward that helps in other areas of the game as well, as long as it's something that goes further than just, okay, this is just a comp rec. I think it's a really good mentality to have when you're developing stuff for players and for when I'm playing the game as well. But either way, thank you very much for watching and listening to today's video. I'll see you all in the next one, and let me know what you think to the expansion to Slayer.